Okay, I think we're live. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Going to be doing a live stream today about vegan news, environmental topics, and health, as I am usually trying to do once a week or so. Today is the 10th episode of the Vegan News and Views live streams, so I think that's pretty cool. I apologize in advance if I'll be coughing or anything like that. I'm feeling pretty sick actually at the moment, so yeah, but besides that, I think it should be a good show, and hopefully everyone is going to be on now. Hi Jen, and hi Race Lover. You are not live. I recorded this earlier. Very, very funny. Okay, awesome, cool. So since we already got two key people in, I'm ready to roll. So let's jump in. I got a ton of stuff for you guys today. Let me go to the browser view here, and we'll start with some good news. So what we have is actually a little bit of good news coming out of Ireland and Canada as well. So I'll show you guys that in a second. Oh, the audio is low. Let me adjust that. Give me 1 second. I think it's just I'm also not feeling too good, so I think it's just my throat. But I've bumped it up. You should be able to hear me a lot better now. Let me know if that's better. And if it's not, then I'll move it up some more. Okay, so yeah, good news coming out of Ireland. The government's food recommendations. So this is just kind of like the hi Nikki, thanks for joining. Good to see you. Just like in the US, like we have the food pyramid as it used to be, then they had the little plate, the My Plate or whatever they called it. Other countries have similar dietary recommendation guidelines, and cool, thanks Racer. And basically the Irish government has now just moved to basically encourage people to start eating more vegetarian, less meat heavy, and you know, basically start giving up some of the you know, meat-based diet. And I just think this is great news. Apparently the person who is responsible for the creation of their food pyramid, where is his name? There was this guy. Oh, actually, sorry, it's a lady. My apologies. Dr. Mary Flynn. She says they give you fiber and they give you your body an easy energy to work off of. If you have a minimal amount of carbohydrate, you won't feel very good. You're asking your body to work very hard to get energy from protein and fat. And then it goes on to say that you know, this you know, recommendation is about reducing the intake of fat and sugar and only eating red meat or poultry 2 to 3 times a week. Now again, obviously I would prefer if that was, you know, a more whole food plant-based you know, recommendation, but it's a step in the right direction, so I applaud it. And hopefully as more people adopt it and they feel better, then they'll, you know, keep going and do the next steps. So I think that's really good. And this person, the Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, oh sorry, they previously served as Ireland's Prime Minister and Minister of Defence and leader of Fine Gael, recently announced he had reduced his meat intake for the good of the planet and his health. I'm trying to eat less meat both for health reasons and for reasons of climate change. So I think this is great. You know, they're setting a good example. The more people follow, the better. So kudos to Ireland. And then same thing here, that actually came on the heels of Canada's food guide being updated just earlier in the week as well. And this is a great article here by a vegan, Dr. Pamela Ferguson. I follow her on Twitter actually. I just recently followed her. If anybody's on Twitter, I definitely recommend a follow for Dr. Pamela Ferguson. And she talks about how this change is positive, and you know, basically just kind of covers the positive change that they have removed dairy as its own unique category from their food guide, and they are basically encouraging people to go more plant-based as well for their protein options. Raise Lever, come on man, I don't even have that much in Patreon support. I can't be paying you, but thank you anyway. And okay, so yeah, so this is, you know, great news. And the reason I also wanted to talk about this is that, you know, despite this seeming like a good step in the right direction, I don't think we should be complacent as you know, vegans and people who are advocating for environmental sustainability as well as kind of the ethical side of things, because it's obviously not enough, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I just want to also say that obviously the animal agriculture industries are going to be fighting this, and there are already kind of countermeasures in place. I found this interesting article talking about the food producers of Canada, and oh, I missed Race Lover says an option. Oh, you can borrow my car. Yeah, well, if you fly over, maybe. So yeah, basically they're basically saying how, you know, the food producers are getting a bad rap. People want to know more about where their food is coming from, and they want more transparency, and they want to be able to see how the products are being produced, and, you know, kind of how ethical and sustainable they are, and all this kind of stuff. And this article talks a lot about the different efforts made by the also the animal agriculture side, but also even just you know, plant agriculture farms, and what they're doing, letting people you know, coming onto their farm and seeing things like that. And of course it's kind of like meant to be a feel-good kind of article about how they're spending all this money on kind of advertising and you know, all this kind of stuff. And what they don't realize though is that you know, it's one thing to go to a, like, say, a dairy farm or a cattle farm where they show you all the cute fluffy parts, like when the animals are kind of running around in the field, and then it's another thing to show you the whole process behind it. And of course that part is never shown, because people, if they saw that, they would never, like, buy the product. But anyway, so this article is interesting, but more just, you know, it's like a fluff piece really for the industry. You know, this person's showing the cattle feed, this lady's smelling it, and she's now gonna probably feel somehow more connected to the cows that she's consuming as hamburger or whatever. You know, it's just kind of ridiculous. There were a few good parts of the article where they were talking about vegetable growers and how they're, you know, getting people to come in, and I just think it's like a very, you know, good kind of like you know, balance of, like, in the plant-based farm, like, you could probably bring your small child and have them see the whole process. There's nothing that's going to, like, freak them out or, like, you know, cause, like, emotional trauma, but I wouldn't say that that is the same, you know, to be said for the animal agriculture industry. You know, right from the beginning of the artificial insemination to the births and taking of the babies from the mothers, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's you know, pretty interesting. So definitely check this out if you get a chance. Next one here is the Alberta Ranchers Group is already, you know, fearing the new Canadian guide. They're basically saying, like, well, it's going to make people eat less red meat, and it's going to cut into their business. And, you know, this article talks already about, you know, how they're going to try to counter that. And, you know, they're already bringing in this whole thing. Is serving tofu more nutritious than a serving of beef? You know, look at all the sides and blah blah blah. I mean, it's very clear, you know, again, fluff piece, trying to get people to think that eating cows is necessary and important, and we shouldn't be you know, switching to plant-based diets. You're absolutely right, Race. They do fear the Leguminati. I mean, these people's livelihoods are on the line, right? So if people just stop eating altogether, they have a real problem. And as I've talked about in some of the previous streams I've done, you know, people are slowly but surely switching. They are making the switch out of dairy milk to plant milk. They're switching from farming animals to farming plants, and that's what we need to keep encouraging people to do. I've talked about it many times before, but a lot of this, like, you know, grazing land that is always kind of held up as this, like, well, you can't raise, you know, you can't grow vegetables on the land that you graze the animals on. That's not true. The reason why the soil is so poor is because of the animals. If you look into any of the actual science, you will see that the claims made by the Alan Savory Institute and similar people are all just a bunch of, like, lies. And like I say, and I've done videos about this too, if you just watch somebody, like, in your neighborhood, I mean, there's people around me that, you know, keep all sorts of ducks, chickens, small birds, pigs, etc. If you look at what happens to any of those yards when even just the backyard chickens are there, they, like, just destroy any kind of, like, plant growth right down to just bare dirt and clay. As soon as you remove the chickens, like, within, you know, a couple months, it's green, lush, like, vegetation. And this is something that can be done on a larger scale. I've talked about it before, but check out Sepp Holzer, see the work he's done in places like you know, Scotland in areas where they've said the soil is just totally unsuitable for anything except grass, and he's been able to grow you know, luscious vegetable gardens there, you know, just using like heavy mulch and berms and, you know, smart use of basically, you know, water retention and all this kind of stuff. So it's really good. Yep. You're right on, Race Lover. They're just worried about losing their money, and that's really what it comes down to. And you don't give a damn. Yeah, I mean, I feel that we need to give them an option. Like, we have to say to them, look, you can run a profitable business doing something else. And if we do that, you know, then it really kind of puts the ball in their court. Like, they have to either realize they're doing something that's unethical, unsustainable, like environmentally damaging, unhealthy to people, for profit. And there is an alternative. They can do something else for profit. They can grow vegetables, and if they're willing to do that, great. And I support them wholeheartedly and fully. And if they don't, then they're going to go out of business. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Vegan eyes. Hi, vegan eyes. Not true at all. Many farmers grow daikon radish to graze. Yep. Those are some of the first things that Sepp Holzer also recommends growing, is like radishes, daikons. They're really good. Fukuoka said this as well, because it breaks through the soil. It's a very deep growing like root, and it's actually able to kind of aerate and break up really tough soil. So it's actually some of the best things you can start growing in really inhospitable kind of soil. And once you have it kind of like you know, softened and aerated, then it will start slowly but surely taking other things as well. And you can do tons of different kinds of grains and everything else, just like grass. I mean, grass is a grain in a way, so it's very similar to, you know, barley and rye and things like that. You can grow a lot of that kind of stuff on the same lands if you just stop simply grazing the animals. Nikki, yeah, Alan, Alan Savory, yeah, thumbs down. I've heard people refer to him as unsavory. Yep, veganize helps the soil by drawing the nutrients up. That's also a great point. Raceler, I have no problem helping them if they're willing to change. Yep, absolutely. People don't just change career. Generally, yeah, I would agree with that. I think people are resistant to change. They're always afraid. And yeah, I think it's just like they're either going to change or they're gonna break. Like, it's like the straw that needs to bend or break. Like, I don't know. There's not much chance for them. Yep, Nikki points out, great point. Alan Savory was in charge of like conservation efforts in Africa, and he ordered like just a huge number of elephants killed. I don't know about that number exactly, but yeah, you wrote 40,000 elephants to be killed. I don't know if it's that many, but I mean, I've read about this too. I think Mike the Vegan did a good video, and I think he talked about that as well. So yep, veganize. Thank you very much. You're awesome too, and I appreciate the support. Green compost with legumes, absolutely, and just, you know, deep mulch, and a lot of these different plants can be grown in these places. I definitely recommend checking out Sepp Holzer's book, Permaculture. You can actually download it for free as a PDF. It's on the net, which is like a quick Google search, and it's really good, you know, great. He has very specific things of like, you know, if it's this kind of soil, grow this first, then do a rotation of this, add that next, you know, and he goes through very specific, very detailed things for a given soil. So wow, Nikki, yeah, the number's accurate, you say. Wow, I mean, that's incredible. Like, just mind-boggling that anyone would listen to that man after he does such a thing. Just unbelievable. Can open a farmer's zoo where I collect all the animal farmers and train them to doing tricks and become vegan. Yep, that would be great, Race. Good luck with that project. Next here, lamb sales plummet. This is coming from Farmers Weekly. It's an industry you know, site, and they're talking about how lamb sales are just down because young British people are rejecting it. And I apologize for the picture here. I realize that that's upsetting for people, but basically, you know, they're talking about what they can do to like boost their sales for the next year, and they're going to be exporting more stuff and whatever, but they want to get more young people eating lamb because in the UK it's an aging market and their demographic is dying out. Here it is. It's now down to the industry to innovate and attract younger buyers to lamb, as the current demographic is an aging one. So I hope that they don't succeed, and I hope they realize they better start farming something else. So Yeah. So, Nikki, that was supposed to be a mistake, and that's why he's now advocating driving herds. Yeah, it was by design. I mean, you don't decide to kill that many animals without, you know, and plus, like, didn't he do some like smaller kind of scale stuff before he decides that he's gonna kill, you know, 40,000 elephants? I mean, the guy's just nuts. I just can't believe that anybody takes him seriously after, like, you read up on him even just a little bit. But I think what happens is, we've talked about this too with Tim on the previous live stream. People really do want to just validate their already existing opinions. So for the carnivore, you know, pasture-fed, you know, grain, what do you call it, grass-fed beef proponents, they see somebody who's kind of agreeing with their lifestyle decision, and they just immediately latch onto them and be like, oh, this guy's right on the money, you know, and they don't look into it to see, like, wow, this guy's a nut. So it's really crazy. Here's another one where, you know, right on the back of, you know, Canada adopting this new food guide where they take dairy out of the daily consumption recommendation, what do? They turn around and they give $2.7 million in funding to the dairy farmers of Canada so that they can run ads basically enhancing the public trust in dairy production. And, you know, here's a quote here from whoever this person is, Agri-Food Minister Lawrence Macaulay. Our government is pleased to support Canada's dairy farmers in their efforts to demonstrate that their products meet the highest standards for quality and safety and are produced responsibly and sustainably. Building consumer confidence and trust helps ensure the growth and sustainability of Canada's dairy sector. This just absolutely points out the hypocrisy, the money involved, the power of the animal agriculture industry, the lobbying that must go in. It's like they probably had some backdoor shady kind of things where they probably said, okay, look, we'll take out dairy from the daily diet recommendation, but then we'll give you $2.7 million to go spend and run ads. And, you know, the way I look at it is like, you know, people are really kind of, unfortunately, probably more glued to their TV screens than they are to, like, actual news or, like, just looking around or reading or, like, you know, enriching their knowledge about health topics. You know, how many times do people see the food recommendation versus how many times are they watching TV or seeing ads? It's just like, you know, a no-brainer. I think, you know, the industry is going to probably benefit more from, you know, from the ads than they are from, you know, getting hurt by the, you know, the removing it from the food pyramid or whatever food guide. So it's a little bit frustrating, and I just want to point out that, like, yeah, we have to be vigilant. We absolutely have to kind of keep pressure on these groups, and, you know, people have to be more aware that, like, look, this is what's happening. You have, like, one, you know, win, but then you have a small defeat, or maybe even a larger defeat on the other hand. So, yeah, veganized, pleased to support. Yeah, it really stuck out at me as well. It's like the government should not be having to prop up an industry that is causing people ill health, ruining the environment, is totally unsustainable, is totally unethical, and they're using our tax money. I mean, I'm not a Canadian taxpayer, but you get what I mean. They're using, like, the people's tax money to go and fund the industry that's making billions of dollars off the backs of animals and people's health and the environment. It's absolutely crazy. I don't know Stabbing Westward's song Television. I'll have to look that up, but I imagine they are probably anti-television. I actually haven't owned a TV since 2003, so it's been, I don't know, 16 years now. Yeah, well, I never actually owned a TV, but from that point on, I have not had a TV in my home, I should say. So, yeah. Yeah, Race Lover, I think, you know, I'm going to talk about a little bit, to your point, later in the stream here, about what we can do, because I think we as individuals do have a obligation to speak up and do what we can, and there are actually, you know, things that we can do as individuals and actually affect change. So, yeah, good on you, Nikki, good on everybody. I think TV is just a terrible use of time. I got to the point where, like, I was working, it was after college, and I would come home from work, and I just noticed myself as like, oh, I'll just turn on TV while I eat some dinner. And then lo and behold, you know, 3 hours of this later, you know, you're done eating, and you're just sitting there, like, with the remote control. There's nothing good to watch. You're just sitting there wasting your life away. Then you look up, and you're like, oh, shoot, it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock. Well, I guess I may as well go take a shower and go to sleep, and then repeat. And it's like, that's what you do 5 days a week. You're not really going to get ahead. And, yeah, it's just, once I realized that that was a cycle that I was in. I just decided, like, I'm not going to watch TV. And once I moved out on my own, it was like, done. Not have a TV. I don't have cable. I don't pay for cable. I don't want TV in my house. So it's like, yeah, it's just, yeah, crazy. Video games too, man. Me too. I used to be big into games. Don't play any games anymore. No remote will sink your boat. I don't know what that is a reference to, but anyway, 1984 reference. Yeah, Nikki. I mean, people are glued to. I mean, we were on the phones. You know, it's almost as bad, but I just do like to think that I'm actually learning stuff when I watch a lot of instructional things, or like ideas like for gardening, or you know, like tiny house movement and building and being more sustainable, environmentally sound. I love reading and learning about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, even once I moved to Europe, I started taking public transportation a lot more again, and for a long time I wasn't driving at all. And yeah, I mean, I was just reading tons of stuff for a while. I was like, I don't know, reading a book a week pretty much, you know, just on the public transport. It's a much better use of time. Life is flashes of light. I don't know what that reference is, but anyway. Ignored life for flashes of light. Don't know what that is. Oh, okay. Oh, you're saying the flashes of light from the TV and the games. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Leon, thanks for joining. Kudos if you don't have a vehicle, man. That's awesome, Veganize. I mean, I kind of live a little bit out of the city, and it's I wouldn't say it's impossible for me to not have a car, but it's pretty darn impractical, like with the kids, and I don't know. I mean, at some point, you know, maybe I would consider giving it up, but like for right now, I just feel like I kind of need it. YouTube is pretty much TV, except Al is a better actor than Brad Pitt. Wow, that is a huge compliment, Race. Thanks very much. I wouldn't say that I'm sexier, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I like real people and ideas, Nikki. Yeah, absolutely. And if you watch, like, you know, reality TV, I never understood that. Even when I was watching a lot of TV, I never understood why somebody would want to see somebody else's, you know, it's not even their life. It's like their, like, trials and tribulations in the bad sense. It's like people who watch that stuff, like, I often feel like they're just watching to see the person stumble and either make a fool of themselves or get into some kind of trouble, or like have something bad happen to them, and then you can like gloat over them, like, look at that fool, like that person's life is worse than mine. You know, I just don't understand it. Like, it just, I don't know, it doesn't do anything for me. Kudos to you, Leon, man. Using bikes, that's awesome. Name's Kirk, Veganize. Cool. Welcome, Kirk. All right, next thing. Again, just speaking to the power of industry and kind of like money and, you know, lobbying and all this kind of stuff. I found this article which just blew my mind. The USDA has a stockpile of over 1 billion pounds of cheese. This is excess cheese that they can't sell, and they want to prop up the commodity of cheese. I hate using that word for something that came from the suffering of so many animals, but you get what I'm saying. And they have a stockpile of 1.39 billion pounds of cheese. And so they're talking about how, you know, milk production has been on the rise for decades. It's just from the better, I'll put it in quotes, technology that's available. So the cows are producing more milk, they're able to get more, they're cramming more into smaller sheds, all this kind of stuff. And the consumption of milk is actually going down. So what do? They produce it into cheese because it stores for a lot longer than milk. The more you process something, the longer its shelf life is, typically. But like in the case of milk and cheese, that's definitely the case. And so, yeah, it says, because milk is so perishable, some dairy farmers simply dump their milk in the trash due to the tune of tens of millions of gallons per year, and others make cheese. So there's two things here that is absolutely just shocking and so upsetting. One is that you have this horrifically unethical, unsustainable, environmentally damaging, you know, industry that's already getting, you know, tons of money from the government. Your tax money, my tax money, goes to pay for these industries, and they're profiting directly from this. So they're basically, you know, basically socializing their costs, privatizing all their profits, and they are even then, after all that torture, all that, you know, unethical behavior, then dumping the milk so that they can keep the price high, and because they can't sell it, or they make cheese, and then the government pays to stockpile it as like a food emergency kind of thing. So yeah, it's basically, it's saying that now at its highest level ever, nearly 1.4 billion pounds of the stuff There are also fears a trade war could cut into exports of American cheese. The U.S. exports more cheese to Mexico than any other country. There have already been retaliatory tariffs placed on cheeses exported from U.S. to Mexico. So just insane stuff. You know, don't think for a second that the industry doesn't have hugely, you know, powerful connections into government, and that they don't control extraordinary wealth, and they're doing all sorts of shady stuff like this. So this is just insane. I mean, and you know, this is not some vegan propaganda. You can see this site is modernfarmer.com. So can you tweet this vid, vegan? Yeah, Kirk, please, anybody, please share the video, get more people in. So thanks for being on, and thanks for sharing it to anybody. I appreciate it. Race lover, the government is a bunch of rats. It makes sense they would store cheese. You know, that's a very spot on observation. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just so shocking when you see it, when it's laid bare like this, that there is no question in my mind that all of this stuff is just dirty money. It's a way to, you know, basically legitimize industries that have no business even existing anymore, and they're able to basically whitewash stolen money from taxpayers and give it away to industry and their friends. So that's exactly what's happening. Oh, you had a previous comment, I missed that. There was a skim milk powder in a pita I used to get, I was like, why? Yeah, Kirk, that is actually something that if you have you've probably heard of Dr. Neil Barnard, but he's excellent, and he has several really great videos on YouTube and elsewhere, articles and books that he's written about cheese and dairy production and everything. And he talks about kind of the addictive nature of the you know, cheese, the casomorphines that are in there. He talks about the government money involved and how the USDA pays for you know, the inclusion of cheese into other products. So like these things like the you know, pizzas with the extra cheese, or pizzas with the stuffed cheese crust, you know, like on the side to get even more cheese on it. These don't just come about by mistake. They're not like just you know, random coincidences, or like they're not fully just invented by the industry. These are done you know, at the behest of the government. So they need to do something with all this cheese. They don't want to waste it. Dr. Greger had an awesome video that he did a long time ago. It's one of the really old videos where he talked about kind of the push after World War II to increase the protein requirement recommendations on a international level, because the U.S. had so much stockpiled milk powder at the end of World War II that they didn't want it to go bad. So they just upped the protein recommendations for people, so that they can then ship that stuff to developing countries like Africa and other third world areas, and basically pawn it off as something that people needed to make sure they were getting enough protein. Horrifically unethical, and yeah, it just never stops. Can you tweet the vid of when I didn't think or know I was being filmed? That's a bit scary. Maybe there is such a video like that. I don't know, Race, but maybe send it to me first. I'll take a look. This article I actually haven't read, but I just want to kind of point out a little bit. So this is from The Economist. I don't have a subscription, so I can't read the whole thing. If anybody does, maybe they will read it. But it was just an interesting thing that talks about chicken becoming the most popular meat in the world. And they're basically saying that since 1990, in the OECD countries, so this, as it says, a club of mostly rich countries, pork and beef consumption has remained unchanged, but chicken consumption has grown by 70%. So this is just something that you know, I just want to point out to people that you know, again, based on these recommendations, where like a lot of people hear like, oh, don't eat red meat. They think that that's only like cattle, when it's actually not. So any mammal is actually red meat. So pork, you know, pig meat is red meat. Lamb is red meat. Anything that's a mammal is red meat. And a lot of people don't know that, but that's one thing. But I think sometimes these recommendations just push people towards chicken because they assume that it's somehow healthier or less damaging. And from an environmental standpoint, I believe that it is less resource intensive. So, you know, in some ways, it's like, is it, you know, I'll put it in air quotes, better for the environment, like raising tons of chickens than, you know, cattle or pigs? Like, I mean, maybe, but like it's still horrifically destructive. It's still incredibly cruel and, you know, totally unethical and unnecessary. And it's not a good trend to see this increasing, especially not by 70%. So, you know, they say here that chickens now account for 23 billion of the 30 billion land animals living on farms. So it's like the vast majority of farm animals are chickens, and they also outnumber all birds on the planet combined. I just thought this quote here was just insane. Total mass of farmed chickens exceeds that of all other birds on the planet combined. So yeah, it's just crazy stuff. I didn't, again, read the whole article, but if somebody wants to, it's a pretty interesting little piece there. Silly people, they only think red meat is beef. They absolutely, so many people think that. They're like, oh yeah, I give up, you know, eating red meat. I only eat pork now. It's like, it's still red meat. Hey Vohan, thanks for joining. So this is a fantastic article. This was really, really interesting. I definitely recommend everybody reading this. This was talking about the history of meat consumption and how drastically it rose in the Victorian era. Especially, this is, you know, focused on the UK perspective, but, you know, the same could be said, I'm sure, for, you know, most of the developing world. With the advent of refrigeration, better transportation techniques, you know, faster ships, all this kind of stuff, the people living in the UK had access to like ridiculously cheap meat in comparison to what they had grown locally previous to this period in human history. And this article talks about how you know, there was actually a kind of like bit of drama around that at the time, because there were like protectionist measures in the UK that were trying to convince people not to buy the imported you know, meat goods from the cheaper areas like the US and Australia, New Zealand, etc., or India and other places. And there were like you know, fears that the imported goods had far lower quality. There were like scares about dead babies being boiled and fed to pigs that were being imported, and just crazy stuff. Like, this article is awesome. I would definitely recommend it. It talks about old books, how it's like telling people to make like, you know, beef like stews and stuff for health and all this kind of stuff. This is the part talking about the boiled babies. Just crazy stuff, man. And yeah, definitely interesting. You know, they talk about the slaughterhouses and how they became, you know, mechanized, and the bigger farms, the more condensed animals, the faster slaughtering, the faster butchering, the longer, you know, ability to store them, all this kind of stuff. And how, you know, sadly, this kind of thinking and this kind of, you know, advocacy started getting pushed out to all the other areas of the world, to the point that they're saying that, yeah, like the Victorians caused the meat-eating crisis the world faces today. So just crazy stuff, and really interesting article. And then just the last point that I want to read here is they say, at the same time, Britain's growing vegetarian movement was promoting the economic, health, and ethical benefits of a meat-free diet. So think back, this is back in the 1880s. So it says, writing in the 1880s, the prominent vegetarian and socialist Henry Salt, I don't know who this is, I'm going to read up on Henry Salt later, predicted that future and wiser generations will look back on the habit of flesh-eating as a strange relic of ignorance and barbarism. I mean, kudos to this person that he could, you know, see this. Hey, Chaz, man, good to see you. Cool, really glad to have you on. And so yeah, it's just like, hope you're staying warm, buddy. You know, this guy was just amazing. Like, I mean, this quote stands today just as it did then. You know, we are just it's just as true now. And I hope that people someday, you know, get past this point where we're destroying the earth and destroying our health for stuff that we don't need, and, you know, at the expense of the animals. But yeah, just very interesting stuff. So definitely, I don't know Henry, so I'm a fake vegan. Yeah, maybe race. I have to look into it. This article is from the conversation.com, and the title is "Victorians Caused Meat-Eating Crisis the World Faces Today." I'll have the links for everything and in the comments after the stream. So yeah, you can just, you know, find it from there. You know, again, going back to talking about government and the role of like lobbies and, you know, how powerful industry is, I wanted to kind of highlight the counter to this. Like, you look at Donald Trump, he had a bunch of, you know, footballers visiting the White House for winning whatever, I don't know, some national tournament or whatever it was, and the college football playoff national championship. And what does he feed them? A bunch of hamburgers. So he literally ordered like a heart attack on a plate for all the footballers who we know already have usually pretty poor health. I feel terrible for football players. If you've never looked into it, you should see kind of the health risks that they face. It's just a terrible, brutal sport. They undergo horrific injuries oftentimes. They're definitely in caloric surplus to maintain mass. And yeah, a lot of these guys are not looking at what they should be eating for health long term. They're just looking at kind of how to maintain their body size for being effective on the field. And yeah, so he he got like whatever it was, like I don't know, a few hundred hamburgers. And I just want to basically highlight that he's saying like this is American and whatever, and you got all these people eating this stuff thinking they're patriotic, and they're just contributing to like deforestation, environmental ruin, and just it's just crazy. So it is an embarrassment. Jazz, absolutely crazy stuff. Sad. I got a bunch of sea related, so ocean related news items. I've talked about in a previous couple streams how in Russia there are still lots of animals being kind of captured for entertainment, sorry, not entertainment, educational purposes, and what they're really doing is selling them to places like China that still have zoos and that kind of stuff for sea life. And yeah, they're basically talking about how 50 seals are going to be removed from this Primorsky region of Russia and put into Chinese zoos. So they're using a loophole in the law where they're basically saying the extraction of living marine mammals is possible only for research, education, and cultural or educational purposes. But they're basically saying that the Chinese zoos that they're sending them for are using them for that purpose. But obviously the environmental groups are not happy about this, and they're trying to trying to get them to reconsider and not send them. You guys are funny. So yeah, here's another bit of horrible news. In the ocean, the Indian Coast Guard has seized a trawler that was carrying 250 endangered baby sharks. They arrested 7 fishermen. They were poaching these animals from a protected marine sanctuary, and they were arrested. They're talking about how important these animals are to the ecosystem and how they should not have been removed, obviously. And kudos to them for being caught, I guess, for the marine police or whatever that caught them. But I've talked about this in other streams before. It's it's just really important to have sharks in the water, and people just don't realize this. And I've talked about the the shark killing fish nets out in Australia, and other things like this. It's just sad to see this. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. This is an update to a story that I've talked about before. There were I think it says 80 Cuvier beaked whales that washed up dead earlier. Well, I guess it was last year, so late last year. It says beginning of August, off the coast of many UK areas. So I think it was like Scotland, Ireland, and a few other places. I forget exactly the area, but basically these animals were suspected to have been killed by sonar related things where they basically get spooked. They are deep diving whales, and if they get spooked, or they can get like their navigation all screwed up from the loud sonar, they will sometimes like resurface too quickly, and they will get the bends just like people can get the bends, and they can actually die from that. So they suspect many of these whales died from that, or just from being messed up by the sonar. And then I've also talked about how the Trump administration has allowed a detonation type surveying under the ocean to try to find oil and gas reserves, and how that is probably going to cause all sorts of problems. But this group now basically estimate that they explain why, but they basically are saying that it's believed that at least 1,000 or so of these whales may have been killed by this kind of sonar intrusion, and it's just very shocking. And they're saying the reason only 80 or so washed up was because this happens really far offshore, and the bodies just simply deteriorate by the time they get out that far, and many of them will probably just never be recovered, and even the ones that they did recover, it's very difficult to know for sure what happens, but this is the leading theory, and just goes to show you that the group that launched the lawsuit against the Trump administration trying to ban that explosion kind of mapping, I hope that they maybe are able to use this as data against them in the court of law, hopefully. Correct circle of life and humans racket. Yeah, thoughts on Fukushima. Oh, that's I will actually talk about Fukushima in a little bit in a related article, so I'll get back to that. Perpetual Annoyed, hi, welcome. Don't worry, I got a bunch of articles to cover still, so you're not too late. Get on it, Vohan, on developing sonar that's safe for marine life. I don't know if it would be, because technically it's sound, so it's traveling through the water and then bouncing back. They must have to use something else. I don't know if you can use laser that far down. Maybe, but it's probably getting blocked by the water or something. I don't know. Japan is starting commercial whaling again. I will be talking about that in just one more article away. This article was showing that they did a analysis in Portugal, and in this Douro estuary, they found that there are more microplastics in the water than fish larvae. So it's just absolutely sad. You can see that it's a very developed area, so there's a lot of people living here, but you can basically just understand the calamity that we're facing here in the oceans. The heavy rains from the land are washing down into this estuary, and yeah, it's so bad that there's more plastic in the water than fish larvae. So it says here, the fish larvae stomach will be full of plastic and not real food, so they'll die. It's terrible. I mean, people just don't realize how bad this stuff is. So yeah, it's just crazy. I'm not going to read that comment, Race. So yeah, this is basically the point about Japan resuming commercial whaling. So I've talked about this in a previous stream where they left the International Whaling Commission because they had a moratorium on hunting whales, and Japan has for years tried to flout that resolution and killed up to 300 whales every year in the name of science. They would say that it was for educational purposes, but they of course then sold all the meat in the market. So it's just obviously a loophole, and yeah, basically they're resuming. They're going to be resuming on July 1st of this year. So I am not against free speech, Race. I'm going to actually do a video about free speech and censorship. I hope I can do it soon, maybe in the next day or two, but yeah, I didn't even cover that as a news item, but everyone probably knows Vegan Gains channel got deleted. It was terminated because of violations of the community guidelines, which is just a ridiculously bogus claim. I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. I just I want to collect all my thoughts and kind of explain that, but I'm absolutely against censorship of any kind. So yep. Okay, so yeah, basically, like I said before about the Japanese whaling, in a way this might actually be kind of good news. They may end up killing less whales than they caught before, because now they're going to be limited to hunting whales in their own body of water around Japan, so they're not going to be allowed to go down to the Southern Ocean under the guise of the research. So yeah, it says they killed 333 whales in the name of research last year. So their whale consumption is going down. So you can see here the last point here, the consumption of whale meat peaked in 1962 at 230,000 tons for annual consumption in the country, but has since trended steadily downward with an average of 5,000 to 6,000 tons consumed yearly today. So that's a huge drop from from 1962. It's certainly not perfect, but maybe as more and more old people kind of die off, the young people are not going to be adopting this terrible tradition, hopefully. So yeah. Hey, Mr. Bubblegum. Yeah, poor Richard. I really like Vegan Gains. I like Richard. I think he's a good guy. you know, by no means you know, agree with everything he says. I mean, why should you? You know, you don't have to agree with everything that someone says. But he makes great videos. He makes great educational you know, content, and some people really need that kind of, you know, brand of advocacy. Like, some people respond really well to that kind of you know, basically like that kind of aggressive content. And I'm all for people, you know, spreading the message in whatever way they see fit. If somebody doesn't like it, they don't have to watch it. But yeah, like I said, I'll do a video on that separate, because I got a lot of ideas that I want to talk about censorship in general, and it's not just related to him. But I do hope he gets his channel back, and I've tweeted for, you know, some positive things, and I'll definitely be sharing my video on the matter with everyone as well. So you guys are funny. Okay, so next, this is good news for a change in the ocean. This team has basically developed a way to grow baby coral kind of in a controlled environment, and then they're using underwater robots to basically plant them in the ocean on coral reefs that have experienced bleaching. Coral bleaching, it says here, happens when warmer water temperatures cause coral reefs to expel the algae living in their tissues, causing the coral to turn completely white. They sometimes die from that and sometimes don't, but in either way, it's like they're really under stress and they can die easier from other kind of infections. And this robot is basically delivering like all these little, you know, coral babies, it says, and trying to see if they can you know, get coral that's more adaptable to the warmer water, because as I've covered in many other articles before, the temperature of the oceans are rising, and they're rising faster than the coral is able to adapt. So they're specifically trying to cultivate coral that is able to grow in the warmer waters and that has survived kind of the previous bleaching incidents. So they took those and they tried to propagate those, and they will be replanting those back. So I mean, this is a bit of good news. Definitely check this out if you guys get a chance. And here, this one was a bit of good news as well. I don't know why the picture didn't load. There is a huge great white shark here. I don't know why this picture didn't load. Let me try to refresh the page. It's not coming in. I don't know why. But anyway, they found this is supposedly the largest living great white shark ever recorded. They spotted it in Hawaii, and there was a really cool picture of it. So I just wanted to show you guys that. And they said that it's the largest ever documented, and was first seen 2,600 miles away at Guadalupe Island off of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula. So that's just really cool. That let's see if the Twitter page loads. Yeah, like it was. I wish the picture was here so you guys could see it. I mean, it was just so cool to see it. It's massive. Here it is, I think. Are they going to show the picture? Where is it? Well, you get no scale, though. This is the problem. Where they had a person next to it. That's where it was, like, truly impressive. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it through all these million awesome pictures of sea life. But, yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Anyway, so, yeah, maybe just look for this if you can somewhere else. But, it's just cool, man. That, like, the person is just so tiny compared to the shark. It's like, it's just really cool seeing it. So anyway, check that out if you get a chance. I'm building up the hype. Now I gotta go find this. Hold on. Let's see if we can find it, because it's just really, really cool. Okay, well, there's a video here, but let's see if there's an image. I mean, it's big. I don't know if this is it, but this is probably, yeah, this is the shark here. You can see the person. I mean, it's just like, holy smokes, man. This is so cool. This shark is so big. I'm amazed that, like, people can just, you know, have that kind of confidence to be out of the cage next to it. I mean, they probably, you know, it was feasting off of a dead whale actually nearby, so I'm sure it wasn't, you know, hungry for a puny little human. But, yeah, just, I would be soiling myself, like, being that close to something that big in the water with nothing between me. I mean, that is just awesome. So hopefully you guys would see a better picture of it somewhere else. I mean, it's a big shark. All right, so anyway, enough of that. Next, let's see. Tap, come on. Sorry, my throat's killing me. Leon's right on. The whale shark is actually, yeah, bigger, and it is a plant eater. So it's cool. That is not fake news, man. It is not from the movie Jaws. All right, so speaking again to the point of the ocean warming up, and I covered this in a previous stream. The previous estimates for how fast the ocean was actually warming up were actually incorrect, and you know, they're basically saying new research has revealed the stunning discovery of just how fast Antarctica is actually melting today. Between 1979 and 2017, Antarctic ice loss increased by 6 times, according to the study released by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. So that is just shocking. I mean, it's insane. I mean, here it's saying that between 79 and 1990, so that's only just a few years there, the Antarctica lost roughly 44 billions of ice each year. And while from 2009 to 2017, the number incredibly grew to 278 billion tons of ice lost. I mean, it's just like we're approaching, you know, an order of magnitude more, and it's not slowing down. People are right to be, you know, terrified and worried about what's going to be happening with the rising ocean, you know, levels, sea levels, and the more dramatic climate change. I really would hope that people stop this kind of, you know, denying the climate change and making fun of the fact that in some areas of the world they're experiencing extreme cold, and they're saying like, where's the global warming? Because people are just like almost willfully ignoring this kind of stuff. It's like it doesn't have the same effect the whole world over, but as a whole it is warming, and it's, you know, destroying basically the ice caps, and we are going to have serious problems. And like I said, it affects the coral, it affects the oxygen levels, the CO2 levels in the water. It's going to start, you know, putting coastal people who are dependent on fish, you know, at risk of like starving. I mean, it's like, it's crazy stuff. Like, even if you're not a vegan, you should be worried about this kind of stuff. If you are a fisherman, you should be very worried about this stuff. I mean, we're not going to have fish left in the ocean that are, you know, commercially viable for fishing. Like, it's crazy. Like, even if you don't want to be a vegan, you should be absolutely terrified of this news. And yeah, generally, I already live below sea level. Yeah, and think of how many more millions of people are going to have to move if, you know, things get crazy. And maybe, you know, the dikes and the big dams and everything can hold for a certain level, but once there's enough pressure, it goes higher. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, people are going to have to move. We're going to have wars over, you know, land and people moving. It's crazy stuff. Vegan carnist thing, yeah, absolutely. Like, I think people just, they don't want to see that this affects everybody. This is not a question of like politically motivated, like, oh, it's a, you know, right versus left or whatever. Like, people are just gonna have to come face to face with this. I'm gonna talk about this in a little bit. Let's see. I don't deny climate change. I'm just not sold if it's because of humans. The Earth has likely always gone through such things. I should say fully because of humans. Well, you know, race, again, like, we don't have to agree on everything, but I just think, like, you know, there are definitely, even if you don't believe it's caused by people, the fact that the greenhouse gases contribute to making it warmer, that should already be, like, let's at least start, you know, trying to limit the use of the, you know, fossil fuels, which produce the carbon dioxide. Let's try to reduce the animal, you know, product industries, which produce the methane. Let's try to do this stuff, because even if it's not primarily caused by people, the effects are unquestionable, and they're unquestionably deleterious for people and, you know, animals as a whole. So we don't even have to agree on what's causing it. Just, if, you know, if it contributes, like, let's at least stop the parts that we can control for, and not contribute more. So that's what I would say to that. If anyone can fix a water problem, it's the Dutch. Well, yeah, I mean, but to a point. I wonder how far they can take it. Leon, emission of human greenhouse gases is not that large compared to the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle is getting destroyed by animal agriculture. I mean, yeah, we see all these stats that, you know, animal agriculture is the leading contributor. So the methane is worse for the environment than CO2. So that's a huge problem. If you want me to believe your sincerity, pal, then promise me you'll never fart again. Do your part. Well, I'll promise that I'll try to never fart again. How about that? Is that good? All right. Greenland's melting ice nears a tipping point, scientists say. So this is another article. This one is from the New York Times. They're basically saying that, again, the melting is accelerating. It may have reached a tipping point, which could become a major factor in sea level rise around the world within 2 decades. They're basically saying, yeah, that it's twice the average of the rest of the planet in the Arctic, so it's just at the poles, it's worse than it is at the other areas. Yeah, again, you know, talking about the millions of tons of ice melt, nearly 4 times the rate in 2003. So yeah, it's just insane stuff. Definitely read through this. Again, you don't even have to agree that it's all man-made or that it's all caused by human activities, but let's at least stop doing the parts that we are accountable for and that we can control. That's what I would say. Here's a heat wave that is just devastating. It killed a third of an entire bat species in Australia in one fell swoop. So this was basically 2 days in November. They faced such record heat. And for anybody watching who's not from Australia, you have to realize, like, that's their summer, so they're below the equator. I don't want to talk down to anybody, so don't take offense if that's obvious to everybody. But that's why it's like their heat wave is happening in November. And it wiped out this particular bat, which is called the spectacled flying fox. And it killed 1/3 of the nation's, fox population. So the temperatures were so hot, it went over 42 degrees Celsius, which is like stupid hot, and like about 1/3 of the bats died. I mean, they're so cute. They almost look like little dogs. And this one was being treated by a volunteer. So they're saying their finalized count, they think 23,000 of these bats died on those 2 days in November. And they're saying it could be even higher because a lot of them may have been in remote areas that people wouldn't have seen. And it's just absolutely tragic. And they're saying how there's so many other animals that are going to be susceptible to this. We're going to start seeing like huge problems. People as well, are dying from heat stroke and all this kind of stuff. Like, imagine if you lose power and you're sitting in 42 degrees Celsius. Like, elderly people, young people, sick people, like, they often die from heat exposure. So it's just crazy. And Leon says, I heard it's -40 in Minnesota right now. Yep, I was talking to a buddy yesterday. He was stuck out in Ohio. They were like in -20. I've read, yep, -25, -30 in the Midwest right now in lots of areas. And then you have, pardon my, lack of respect, but idiots like Trump basically tweeting about how he wished, we could have some global warming so that the people in the Midwest could get relief from the cold. It's like they don't understand that, like, this is all related. Like, these extreme weather events are definitely related, and we're not helping it any by, giving bailouts to coal companies so that they can keep producing more CO2 and burning, fossil fuels and stuff. So it's just crazy. Yeah, generally, I wanted to talk about that as well too. So generally says a lot of Australians are very against flying foxes. So apparently people do have a very strong prejudice against against the bats. I mean, they're really big, so you can see the size of them. And I'm sure some of this comes from this like kind of stereotypical fear that people have against vampires and bats and whatever. And so people are kind of like, well, screw them. Like, we don't like the bats. And they even talk about this in the article. And they're just saying how much it's a very kind of misguided thinking, and it's hard for the animal protection groups who are kind of struggling fighting for this species to convince people otherwise, and to get like funding and to get people to care, because people just have these like strong prejudices against them, and yeah, they don't want to they don't want to be concerned about it. So yeah, it's just kind of sad. Let's see what else. Wow, generally says 42 is not that hot for northern Australia. It has been over 50. Yeah, they're blamed for a lot like badgers in the UK. Yep, I can imagine that. and I'm sure that that's, you know, unwarranted as well. So I've covered quite a bit about the badgers in the past in the UK, so definitely check this out. Fruit bats cause ALS for the people stupid enough to eat them. Oh yeah, I remember the video by Dr. Greger and Mike the Vegan covering that. If anybody doesn't know that, definitely search for ALS on those guys' channels, nutritionfacts.org and Mike the Vegan. The information that shows the cause of ALS is just absolutely crazy. Like, if anybody is suffering with that or knows anybody who's suffering with that, like, you should definitely look into that. And even if you don't, you should just look into it. It's really crazy. Nikki says humans have killed most of the wildlife in the UK. I hear shooting a lot. Yep, it's crazy. I mean, but it's happening all over the world. I mean, we have like more farmed animals now than wild animals. It's crazy. We need bulletproof armor for the UK animals. That would be great. California Shoe Company develops vegan wool-free UGG boots. So this is great. These UGG boot style things are often made from shearling, which I actually didn't even realize what that technically was. It is basically the lamb skin with the fluffy, you know, wool part on the outside. So it's like that's what shearling is, and that's what these are usually made from. And this vegan company has started making them from vegan materials, and they hope to kind of like get into the market. So anybody who's in the market for these kind of things, go check this company out. They're called Bear something or other. What was it? Bear Paw. They've launched the vegan version, and they have other vegan shoes as well. So I think that's really cool. Thursday's letters. This was a editorial that I thought was great. It was an opinion piece in I think this was in Canada, if I remember right. Where was this? Shoot, I don't even know. It says Edmonton, but Edmonton where? Anyway, the whole point is that this person wrote in about a winter festival called the Deep Freeze Festival, and they were writing to the organizers and the fellow people living in Edmonton, wherever that is, to encourage them to adopt a vegan, yeah, this is in Canada, Albertans. Okay, so basically they were saying, you know, they should adopt a vegan approach for the festival in the future. They don't want to see dead baby animals being roasted and sold when they're walking around with their children. And I think that's great. This article was written really well. I think they were polite and respectful, and you know, really got the point across well. So definitely check this out if you get a chance. I'll have the link for this as well in the comments after. You guys are crazy. Leon Kutstra, hunting chicks. Do you mean women who are hunters, or do you mean people who are hunting chicks as in like baby birds? I'm not sure, Leon. I want to talk about hunting in a little bit as well. Anyway, this one is a award-winning documentary film about a beef farmer who switched to vegan crops. They made a little mini movie about it. Check it out. It's called 73 Cows. And last year, this film won the Best Overall Film Award and the Best Lifestyle Film Award at the Ottawa International Vegan Film Festival. But what is really cool is that, where was this? This guy switched his beef farming to a sustainable organic vegan farming effort, and basically, you know, they are spreading the news through this little 15-minute movie. So check this out if you can. And this was the plan. Where was it? Yeah. So it started out here. It was premiered at the Raindance Film Festival and received a nomination for Best Local Film at the Birmingham Film Festival and trended on Vimeo upon upload. And then basically afterward, at the end of last year, it got this Best Overall Film Award and the Best Lifestyle Film Award from the Ottawa International Vegan Film Festival. So check it out if you get a chance. Some positive news, and kind of, you know, earlier in the stream when we were talking about farmers that need to make the switch, you know, this could be a good incentive for them to watch and see how somebody else was successfully able to do it. wasteland are dangerous. Rabid animals may still need to be hunted, be they human animals or non-human animals. Leon says, hunting chicks as in trying to pick up a woman. Ah, okay, sorry. I didn't catch the joke, sorry. We don't have rabies in the UK, says Nikki. I think rabies is actually very rare nowadays in most of the Western world. There are cases in India and various Asian countries that I've seen about, because I was doing research on wolf attacks, and apparently it's still fairly common, like in places like India. So it's almost like universally implicated in wolf attacks when they attack people. Next one. I wanted to briefly mention, I talked about this last stream, I think, where Utah has upheld a ag-gag law repeal, saying that it was unconstitutional. So, you know, this was back actually in 2017. I thought that was more recent, but I don't remember the story that I covered. But then also, just moving on from this, Iowa ruled that the ag-gag law was also unconstitutional, and and I covered this, and that was a great bit of news. So kudos to them, and hopefully other states, you know, strike down those laws as well. But this was a positive kind of you know, note that Mercy for Animals, which is a LA-based welfare group, they do often make the undercover kind of videos that you see showing the animal abuse and the exploitation that these animals suffer at the hands of crazy farmers and stuff. And they were looking to hire somebody who's going to be a you know, an investigator, an undercover investigator. So if anybody wants to do this kind of work, you can actually apply. They're looking for people who will do really, really difficult work, because you're basically going undercover into these you know, animal industries. So you're going to be working like in the farm or like on the slaughterhouse, or you know, stuff like that. It's really kind of crazy, but if somebody has the kind of, I don't know, kind of like fortitude to do that, they can help the cause. And you know, I admire anybody who can get, you know, past their own kind of struggle, as I'm sure if you're a vegan, like, you would not want to be in that environment and seeing that kind of suffering, but you'd be able to document it and help the organization. So and this article is interesting because, of course, the animal you know, groups here, the industry you know, lobbyists, they are basically just saying, like, you know, undercover videos are not accurate portrayals of their industry, and that they should be, you know, like blocked, and that they're endangering the farms and the animals and whatever. Like they're so concerned about the animals' welfare, but you know, like, if they would be, they wouldn't be killing them. So just kind of crazy stuff. Definitely read through this article if you get a chance. I think there's some very interesting points made. Hi Ellie, thanks for joining. Let's see. Coalition Against Killing, Kirk says. Veganize. Yeah, I don't know about them. Are they similar to, like, the Mercy for Animals? I guess they must be. Okay. Cool. Doing pretty good, Ellie. We're about halfway. So you got quite a few good articles that you missed, but I got a bunch more. So, next one up. This guy is a professional boxer, and he's a vegan. The question is put, think boxers need meat to succeed? Vegan fighter Bryant Jennings disagrees. So I think this was linked from Vegan Martial Arts Lee. So shout out to Lee. If anybody is not aware and is into kind of combat sports, check out Lee's channel. Maybe I'll put that in the link as well. But I think I got this article from him, if I remember right. And they basically, you know, are talking about this guy and how he's facing a lot of kind of people in the industry, in the boxing industry, saying like, well, you know, you can't win a title if you're a vegan. You're just not going to be, you know, able to compete with the meat eaters. And they talk about the history of all these people who were kind of like eating all this red meat and, you know, beef specifically, and how they're fighters and whatever. And this article is pretty good in the sense that, you know, he's doing a great job representing veganism in a positive light. But the article is just kind of garbage in my mind, because they're very clearly trying to cast doubt on, you know, whether or not this guy's going to win is going to be based on whether he eats meat or not. It's just beyond ridiculous that in today's day and age, you know, we need to argue about, like, can you get enough protein on a vegan diet? It's beyond, like, I don't know, just crazy. And then I also wanted to point out something that's really funny. And Ellie, this is actually really funny. I want to talk about this on the next time we do a stream about hunting, because the article you sent about the guy, the poor kid who got killed, who was a hunt monitor. The article has like a correction at the end, and it turns out that he was not trying to unhook the trailer or whatever that they claimed in the article, and they just put the correction at the end. But the article still, like, if you read it from top to bottom, you would never know that they made a mistake because they only put the correction at the bottom. And I just note that this article also has a correction at the bottom, because at the top of the article they say, here it is, the article was amended on January 18th. An earlier version said that no vegan has ever won a world championship. And it turns out Keith Holmes, who held a mid-weight title from 1999 to 2001, ate a plant-based diet. So it's like, yeah, it's crazy. And there is a correction at the end of that other article too, but you have to scroll down all the way to the bottom to see it. So it's just really kind of shows you the bias that we're really facing, like in the in the media. So yeah, definitely, yeah, check it out. All right, shout out to Paul, Hench Herbivore. So if anybody is not familiar, Hench Herbivore is a great channel on YouTube. Definitely subscribe if you're not signed up yet. And Paul's just a really genuinely nice person, as far as I can tell from all the videos I've seen of him. And the BBC ran a great little feature, like mini, I don't know, it's like 2-3 minute video on him, and talking about how he's a personal, fitness coach and blogger, and YouTube, vegan advocate and all this kind of stuff. And they did a very positive kind of little feature on him. So I thought this is great. Like, shout out to Paul, and congratulations on this little spot on the BBC. So that was cool. Let's see, Raceler, all fake carnivores know you need to eat meat to succeed in boxing. They all saw Rocky 1. Yeah, that's pretty much where they're stuck in their knowledge too. They are going to look silly, absolutely. David Hay is still vegan. Don't know. What did it say here at the end? Oh, that's not even. Oh, I don't know who David Hay is then. Maybe he's another boxer. I'm terrible with the professional athletes. I just don't know anything. So sorry, Vohan. I don't know the answer to your question. Veganized Paul is a beast. He's absolutely a beast. Yeah, he's a good dude. I really like his approach, and he just seems like a really lovely person. And yeah, kudos to him. So that's good. Next, I got a bunch of petitions that I want people to sign if you can. This is kind of like, I almost want to make like a new category for these live streams of like the what in bloody blue blazes heck is going on with the world when I still see this kind of stuff happening. Like as a former omnivore and meat eater and proud meat eater and anti-vegan, like I can still at least empathize with people who are saying like we have to eat animals for health because they don't know any better. But when you see stuff like this where it's just like horrifically like cruel for just no reason whatsoever, I'm just beyond it. It's just shocking. Like, I don't know how this kind of stuff, like vegan, omnivore, carnivore, anybody, like how can you justify this kind of behavior? These next couple petitions fall into that category. So like Vohan, I'll put all the links in at the end. Maybe I'll actually, for these, you know what, I will put them in the chat right now here. Hopefully it lets things through. I don't know, did it go in? Oh, it's not letting me. I think the link is too long or something. That's annoying. Anyway, I will have the links at the end in a comment, so sorry about that. I tried to add it. It's just really long, so it didn't let me put it in. But basically, there is a thing, it's like a festival. It's called coyote whacking. This happens in Wyoming. And it basically is a bunch of yahoos, idiots, like driving around in their snowmobiles, chasing down the poor coyotes until they are just absolutely unable to move anymore. And then they basically swing them around and kill them by bashing them into their snowmobiles and trees and stuff like that. And they take videos of this. And it's like a thing. Like, I can't believe this. It's just like, it's like, what? Like bullfighting, it's like, this is like just as bad. Like, how could anybody think that this is okay? And so anyway, just sign this petition if you can. I definitely encourage everybody, please share this. Like, you know, they've got a lot of people signed already. It's 243,000 people have signed. They're looking for 300. So please do sign this. I mean, I was shocked, and they have a video about it. I mean, if you want to cry, like, look at it. But unbelievable. Next thing, a trophy hunt for squirrels. So it's like, it's not enough to go and hunt some dangerous animal like a lion or a cheetah or whatever. You have these other idiots in South Carolina who are shooting squirrels, and the contestants are urged to kill as many as 10 per individual or 20 as a team of 2. The animals that aren't killed instantly will be maimed and brutally injured, leading them to suffer an agonizing death, as I've talked about before in my hunting video. So please do sign this. They are also, here they say, contestants are also urged to shoot the largest squirrels for more points, so they will be targeting pregnant females. So it's just unbelievable. Like, just how can anyone think that this is okay and this is like cool to do? So please do sign this one as well. This one again is the what the, you know, is wrong with people category. They have a chicken toss event and a greased pig event at this place for Ridgeland Pioneer Days. They throw off 200 chickens from the roof of this building, and then people who catch the chicken can bring it home. And maybe it shouldn't be surprising, but this event is sponsored by a thing called the Drunken Monkey Bar and Hotel. That really tells you a lot about the people who are running this. And yeah, I just, again, please, please, please sign this if you can. They're trying to get to 150,000 people. There are 141,000 now. Please, like, let's stop this kind of ridiculous stuff. Like, if you're watching this, you don't have to be vegan. You just have to be against cruelty for no reason whatsoever. Please, please, please sign this. Yeah, it's so messed up. Ray Slayer says they don't need signatures, they need beatings. Yeah, some of these people, like, I mean, this is beyond the pale. I just don't understand. I don't understand how somebody could justify this. Perpetually annoyed. Why can't they just leave poor animals alone? Absolutely. I mean, this is not even as an omnivore, I would have been against this. You know, like, this is just, it's ridiculous. I don't know, man. Yeah, vote ahead. I saw this stuff and I was depressed. I will tell you, this is just kind of messed up beyond. It's like a whole new level of messed up. Oof, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, what is wrong with these people? Yeah, seriously, man. Oh, see you later, Chaz. Enjoy the broccoli soup, man. That's great. Was it here that I saw the possum drop? No, I have not heard of the possum drop. I don't know what that is. Probably something similarly horrific. You all have to realize that most of the world is insane. It will take more than signatures. I absolutely agree, Race, but I think at the very least, let's ban this kind of stuff. I mean, this should not be difficult to ban. Like, I just think, yeah, like, let's get this stuff at the very least banned. Yeah, people are watching the world burn, and I don't know, this is crazy stuff. So anyway, this one is, you know, a little bit of a different category, but for me, it's also kind of just as infuriating. Basically, this one is talking about Pfizer using pregnant mares to produce a one of their you know, medicines that they sell. So basically, what is it called? Premarin? Oh, Premarin. Sorry, Premarin. They basically process the pregnant mare's urine, and they use this as a I don't know, some kind of treatment for, like, I think it's to reduce, like, menopause symptoms in women, if I remember right. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember. I think that's what it does. Anyway, so don't quote me on what it's used for, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So it says water intake is routinely restricted to the poor animals to concentrate the amount of estrogen in their urine, which sometimes causes life-threatening renal and liver disorders for the animals. They are basically kept in these tiny stalls. They are not allowed to move. They have things attached to them at all times so that they can collect the urine that they do produce. So these rubber urine bags, their collection bags, are hanging between their hind legs, and you know, it's basically uncomfortable for them. It's causing them chafing. They are restricted to the point that they can never leave. And apparently they've moved this production to Asia because of the concerns around like animal welfare. But it's a huge industry. And so where is it here? Yeah, they downsized their farming operation, PMU farming operation in North America, and they projected annual sales. Okay, there's a hormone replacement therapy. Premarin and Duvet are over $1 billion US by 2015, and yeah, they're basically moved their production to Asia so that they can get away with like more horrific and cruel treatment of the animals. So please do sign this. You know, I think there are better ways to treat menopausal women. If you know anything from like the nutritionfacts.org site, a lot of times the consumption of animal products actually makes worse any kind of hormone imbalance people might have, especially the estrogen that's found in dairy products is really bad. And for men, the estrogen that can be found in beer, like very hoppy beer, can mess stuff up. A lot of times people think that soy is the problem, but soy actually has phytoestrogens, which are totally different, and your body does not react in an adverse way. In fact, there's lots of studies to show that people have lower symptoms, like menopausal symptoms, if they eat large amounts of soybeans and things like tofu and tempeh and things like that. So yeah, it's just, this is a really sad thing. Definitely sign this one as well, please. Pfizer is disgusting. Yeah, sadly, I think, you know, most of the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry is disgusting, and it's just, they're making money off of people's illnesses, and in this case, you know, the backs of animals. This one I just wanted to share really quick, and this goes a little bit kind of talking about the deforestation and kind of the pressures on the environment that I've talked about before. This is Indian villagers who are attacking elephants that are coming into their farmland, and you know, they're throwing literally fire bombs at the elephants to make them run away and like leave their areas. So it's just, man, crazy stuff, and they're scaring them out of their fields with you know, fire. But the poor elephants have nowhere to go. They're you know, land that they need to feed themselves is like, it's a huge amount of land. They cover big areas, and they need to consume lots and lots of plants, and that often again brings them into conflict with people that are also facing, you know, pressure to grow their own food, and the elephants are eating the food that they planted. So it's just a sad state of affairs, and imagine what this will be like when there's even more pressure on people because coastal regions are flooding, and then even more people go inland. I mean, it's just not, yeah, it's just not a pretty sight. Circle of life, yeah. They're basically making you sick so that you can then need the medicine to keep yourself alive. And they don't want to heal you, they want to keep you perpetually kind of sick, so that you're always on the medication. I've talked many times before on this channel about animal testing and how it's completely unethical, it's completely ineffective, it's completely cruel, and most times there is no effective thing that actually comes out of animal testing, and it will oftentimes lead people in the wrong direction. And I have a whole video talking just about that. But here is a article that talks about the U.S. government is giving the go-ahead to work on fatal experiment with dogs, and it's super controversial. Even the Veterans Affairs people have said that they wouldn't be opposed to stopping this from happening. They're basically looking at ways that they can help soldiers who are going to be like severely, you know, injured from like wartime, you know, explosions or whatever, brain damage and all this kind of stuff, and they're basically, you know, inducing this kind of condition in the animals, and then they're of course killed after the research is done. And you can see here that there are lots of people opposed to it, and let's see, yeah, so it's interesting because they want to go ahead with it, and they've given the go-ahead, but then here, one of the lawmakers who is trying to pass a bill which would ban the testing, Democrat Dina Titus, so kudos to Dina, she's trying to ban it. She said, it's not economically sound. They could be looking at new technologies, and morally people just don't support testing on puppies. So kudos to her for stepping up, and she's also appealing to people's pockets, because what they're saying is here, the department has also commissioned the National Academy of Sciences to spend $1.3 million to run another study investigating if dogs are really needed for this research. So you have like the people responsible for doing this testing. They say that dogs are the only viable method. They're the only viable model, but yet there's a parallel study that's being done for $1.3 million so that they can decide if that's even true. But meanwhile, they don't want to hold off on starting this testing, and they just want to go ahead with it. So it's like, here's the great quote here from the White Coat Waste Project. I don't know if you guys remembered, I covered them previously when they got the monkeys released from the testing on the nicotine addiction. So kudos to them as well. And this spokesman, Justin Goodman, said, I think it calls into question the integrity of the VA's intentions if it is going to continue funding and conducting dog experiments that it has just paid an organization over $1 million to scrutinize. It's like, yes, and that is the perfect summary of this thing. It is literally like if you had, you know, gangster money that you needed to whitewash somehow, this seems like a really good way to do it. Just get the government to, you know, spend it on some kind of like crazy testing that, you know, that doesn't do anything. And I love the quote at the end. This was great. They said, but when asked, this is the VA, the Veterans Affairs group, when asked what medical progress had come about because of dog testing, the agency's spokesman could only point to breakthroughs which dated back to the 1960s. So it's like, yeah, so for the past like 60 years, they haven't done jack squat, and they haven't had any kind of developments from it. But yeah, let's go ahead and kill a bunch of dogs so we can, you know, just waste a bunch of government money. It's just beyond shocking. Like, definitely share this story if you can, guys. And yeah, just ridiculous. No surprise that you know, the Trump administration is involved with this as well. So yeah, yep. Okay, so next, I gotta hurry up because my kids are going kind of crazy. I'm gonna try to speed up, guys. This was a very sad story. It comes out of China. A pig escaped from somebody's like small, like local, you know, slaughter that ended up like running and just from exhaustion basically fell on its front legs, and it happened to be in a Buddhist temple, and people thought it was praying. So the way it looks, it almost looks like it's, you know, genuflecting in front of this Buddhist temple. And people were all like, oh, that's so cute, this pig is praying and whatever. And they were taking pictures and posting it on, like, you know, social media and stuff. And then, of course, it turned out that the owner of the pig came and, you know, they recaptured the pig and they killed it. So it's actually very, very sad, and just goes to show you kind of the strong disconnect that people feel. Like, you know, I'm sure most of these people probably eat meat, but they're seeing this poor animal and they're like, oh, it's like praying for its life and whatever. But then they don't even do anything to help it. Like, nobody tried to be like, no, you can't kill this thing, it's like praying, you know. So it's like, what does it take for people to make the connection? I mean, this is just frustrating. I saw this and I was like, just really sad. So next up here, oh, thanks a lot, Kirk, appreciate it. Yeah, definitely share it, man. Like, I really appreciate anybody sharing this. So yeah, Perpetual Nerd. I was just, you know, saddened by that. It's like, people just don't understand. This is a bit of good news. I try to mix it up with, like, you know, all the bad news, but this is a article talking about how restaurants are running out of vegan chefs. So Britons are ditching meat and dairy to the tune, you know, of like millions, pretty much now. I think they're saying there's an estimated like almost 3 million people that are going to be vegan this year, new vegans, and people are having trouble finding, you know, chefs and cooks and people who can make all the kind of standard fare vegan foods. And yeah, it's really cool. So I just think this is great. You know, I'm not going to cover this article much, just wanted to point that out. I think that's great. You know, there's demand and people are, you know, doing it. Here's another one. Pizza Hut, they had a temporary, it was like a seasonal jackfruit offering, and it was so successful, so many people ordered it that they're gonna make it on the menu permanently. So it's like great news, you know, like let's support these businesses and you know, keep yeah, you know, keep buying the vegan products. The companies are going to switch over. They have no choice. If people don't want to buy the meat, they'll buy the vegan stuff, and then they'll start making the vegan stuff in bigger numbers. Like that's the way to do it. The Super Bowl will be coming up pretty soon in the US, and this was just a great recipe page that I wanted to share here. This is 29 spicy vegan wing recipes for the best Super Bowl party ever. There are an insane number, as you see, 29 different options here. There's ones that are cauliflower one, there's ones that are not, there's ones that are like more, chickpeas, soya, seitan, wheat, gluten-free, whatever. I mean, there's just a million different ones. Make some of these, get people on board. Like, go to a Super Bowl party where you're the only vegan and bring these and see how quick they go. People are gonna love them. So check this out, share this around. Next one, Plant Well. I follow them on Twitter. They have really awesome recipes, and this one just seems like a stupid easy cookie recipe. I have not made it yet personally, but I've made peanut butter cookies in the past, like back when I was an Omnivore, and it's like ridiculously easy. So it's basically just like equal parts flour, sugar, and peanut butter. So, and then, instead of egg, you just throw in a little bit of applesauce. But here's the ingredients, so you can see it. It's really, really simple. Make this. It'll take you just minutes, and cruelty-free. Bring some wings, bring some of these peanut butter cookies, and you're gonna be the hero of the party. How about that Papa John's cheese scandal? Yes, that is a disgusting disgrace if anybody's not aware of it. Papa John's ran out of their vegan cheese, and so they decided, like, in one particular location, I think at least, they were just like, oh, well, we'll just put on the regular dairy cheese and no one will notice. So they got caught out, and they've admitted that it's true, and it's just really, deeply upsetting to lots of people, especially if you think you're ordering a vegan dish and you're getting a dairy dish. But also imagine if you were like really severely allergic. Like, imagine what would happen. You could get killed. That's just really, really awful. So yeah, I kind of feel like ambivalent whenever I eat at places that are non-fully vegan. It's like I want to support their vegan options. I want to basically tell them I'm looking for the vegan options. I want to encourage them to make more vegan options. But at the same time, when you see really shady, terrible stuff like that, it's just like, yeah, do you really want to go there again? Probably never. And they say, they're dealing with it and it's going to be, treated with the utmost blah, 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 and whatever. But yeah, it's kind of like you screw somebody over once, it's kind of hard to get back out of that. It takes a long time to kind of correct that kind of stuff. Nikki says they sell jackfruit in tins at my local shop. That's awesome. That's cool. I recently had jackfruit for the first time. It was probably a few months ago at an Indian place here in Budapest, and it was great. I never had it before. It tasted great. It was in a vegan. I don't know if it was a curry or something else. I think it was a vindaloo. But anyway, it was awesome. It was really great. Race lover. Pal has ups and downs like a roller coaster ride. Yeah, killed pigs, cool sharks. Kind of. Yeah, I mean, I try to get a flow going, but I can't just do all negative stuff all the time, because then I'll go crazy and then I'll feel just depressed by the end. So I gotta have something that brings it back up at the end. Yeah, so I just told you guys about the cheese scandal. Yep, it's dangerous. Absolutely. Imagine if somebody got killed. How would they address that? I mean, geez, man, unbelievable. Some pregnant woman got violently ill, from what I hear. I don't know if it's true, but there's a story on it. Okay, I hadn't seen that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, some people do have very, very strong reactions to dairy, so it's certainly possible. Okay, moving on, because I really got to get going here. This one I just wanted to talk about very kind of briefly. It's an article that talks about how Tesco is going to cut 15,000 jobs because they're closing meat, fish, and delicatessen counters at some of their largest stores. And at first, it almost looks like, this is somehow kind of it's vegan related, in the sense they're selling more vegan products. So they're not selling as much of this stuff, the meat, fish, and deli meat kind of stuff. But then if you read about it, it really does seem like it's they just had a really bad holiday season, and they just want to save a bunch of money. And they're also considering overhauling the in-store bakeries. So they're going to go to frozen stuff instead of fresh dough, and replacing staff canteens in stores with vending machines. So I'm not really sure that this is actually good or bad, in the sense I don't know if it's really related to animal product consumption. It's certainly bad for the people losing their jobs. I hope they can find something, doing a better job than having to deal with dead animal products all day, and animal parts. But it was just interesting. I thought I'd mention that. This one is crazy. This poor 14-year-old boy, he's a vegan. He was being bullied in school. He got beat up by a jerk, and the bully tried to force feed bacon into his mouth after he headbutted him and punched him in the head repeatedly and all this kind of stuff. And the school basically, like, as far as I understand it, didn't really do much. And they are, you know, it says here in the quote, the school have not kept her informed. This is the parent, and claims bullies are protected at the school. Now, I'm sorry, but shouldn't it be the person who's being bullied who should be protected at the school and not the bully? You know, I mean, this is an assault. Like, the kid should be, like, dealt with, like, you know, pretty seriously. Like, you can't be, I don't know. But anyway, it's always the vegans pushing our beliefs down everyone's throats, right? Like, crazy stuff. I don't know. Hopefully this kid, you know, has somebody stick up for him and maybe show him how to throw a good punch or something. But, yeah, Ray Slayer, I think you were talking about the veganism had something to do with the shutting down of the counters. Maybe, because lots of people do go to Tesco's to buy vegan products. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. The kid should learn veg food. If done right, no one can defend. I'm hoping he's all right. You know, I mean, what a traumatic experience. That sucks. Like, I mean, when I was a kid, I got into some fights. It definitely came out poorly in some of them. Like, I know what that feels like. It stinks. So, can I post the link? You may not be able to post the link. I don't know how it works. Try it, but it might not let you post it, Veganize. I don't know, Kirk, if you can. Try it. Alright, next. This was awesome news. This guy is a Devon farmer, so this is in the UK. He basically got sick of bringing his sheep to the slaughterhouse. So he brought, you know, 20 of his male lambs to Good Heart Animal Sanctuaries, and he left them at the sanctuary, and he says, I just couldn't cope anymore and I had to say no. This guy has been a farmer for 47 years, and he has now realized that he can't deal with the stress of basically raising these poor animals to be killed and bringing them to the slaughterhouse. And he says it was taking them to the slaughterhouse, and that was stressing me out a lot. So he drove 200 miles or whatever it was, yeah, to this sanctuary, and he let the animals be there for the rest of their lives instead. And it's really awesome. He's going to change his business model. He's going to be cooking Indian dishes and plan to sell those with homegrown vegetables at the street market instead. It doesn't say he's going to be vegan. I hope that maybe he will be, but at the very least, this is very much applaudable. And yeah, I mean, I can't give this guy enough kudos. Like, if anybody is watching from this area, like, you know, see if you can go and talk to this guy and support him, and, you know, buy some veggies from him or something. I mean, this is awesome stuff. So check that out. Let's see, what did people write? I got the link, Veganize. Let me see if I can open this. Oh man, I can't open it. It's not available in my region because I'm in the EU. So I'll, you know what? I'll tell you what. I will post the link anyway. At the end, copy link address. Go to site. Yeah. So I'll leave the link in. It's talking about the bad weather, so it'll be in there. Okay, guys. This is the link from Kirk Veganize. So let's see. Let me close this. Where was I? Oh yeah, here we go. Back to the article. Okay. Okay. Dogs freezing from the cold and people just leaving the pets outside. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, lots of people don't realize how cold, you know, affects animals, and they won't bring their pets in. It's crazy. Yeah, I'll share the link. Don't worry. Okay, next. I want to give a huge shout out and kudos to Greta Thunberg. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. She is awesome. She's 16, and she is a climate change advocate. She has been doing a school strike in her home of Sweden for like, I don't even know how long. It's been like months. It might even be like a year or something. And she's gained a lot of like international, you know, media attention, especially through social media as well. And she has gone and talked at various, you know, forums and committees, and she was at Davos recently. And this is her speech talking about the urgency of dealing with climate change. And she's just awesome. Like, and for anybody who's thinking like, oh, she's flying around and whatever, she actually is a vegan. She rides her bike. Her parents have sold their car. I think they have like one like electric car or something that they just use for like groceries and stuff. Other than that, they take like bike. She took a 32-hour train ride to get to Davos. She stayed in a tent. She slept outside, and she got like so many like students all around the world like participating in strikes, supporting the message that we need urgent action on climate change. And I just can't like say enough good things about this young lady. So definitely check her out. You can follow her on Twitter. I follow her there. Like, she has awesome stuff. And yeah, like, you can watch the video or just read the, you know, the speech. Kudos to Greta. And the next couple things are all kind of related to, you know, stories about people that she's inspired. But before I move on, let me see what else. Ray Summer says, I made a heated cat house for the feral cats here with a bed. They're lucky as hell. Well, yeah, I mean, think of how bad off they are when it's like this, like -30 and stuff. I mean, they're not meant for that. Vegan eyes. I left my sliding door open with water, food, and bedding that I keep up with under my domicile. Yeah, that's awesome. So the strays can get in. Ray Slayer says his heated cat house has cable TV. He wins. Yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe you lose though, because maybe the cats are watching too much, you know, Trump propaganda or something. I don't know. We'll see. So anyway, so kudos to Greta. Moving on. This is a story talking about Belgium, where thousands of students followed suit and they did their own climate strike. You know, along the lines of what Greta's been doing, and she's been encouraging people all over the world. So they said more than 10,000 students skipped their school day to march and demand better protections for the globe's fragile climate. And it's awesome. Like, I can only say, this kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning. We all have like something we can do. We can all, you know, advocate, talk to people, do our own part. Like, this is just like, you know, a testament that one person can cause so much change. I mean, she was going on this school strike for months. I don't know exactly how long. I have to look it up. But like, for like the longest time, nobody was paying attention. She was being completely ignored. And now she has kind of the, you know, the ears of the world, and the ears of, more importantly, the young people. Because I think young people are really spreading her message, and they can relate to her. She's one of them. She, you know, she's probably more relatable to anybody under 20 than any of us are. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to suppose anybody's age here, but like, I'm an old guy. Like, you know, people shouldn't trust me. They should go and like look at this stuff themselves. And yeah, I just find this to be awesome news. So that was great. And this, I want to get back to something. I don't remember who asked about Fukushima. I think it was Nikki. And if it wasn't, I apologize. But what about Fukushima? So Fukushima was, you know, the power plant, the nuclear power plant in Japan that was damaged by the tsunami, and it caused all sorts of like nuclear radiation to be leaked out in the surrounding oceans, and it actually traveled as far as the west coast of the U.S. and all this kind of crazy stuff. And when that happened, Germany actually decided, and it was actually quite a big deal, that they were going to turn off all of their nuclear reactors by, I think it was like 2030 or something. It was like a pretty aggressive thing. I can't remember. They talk about it in this article too. 2022. So by 2022, they had already made a decision that they were going to disable and permanently shut down all of its nuclear power plants. So I just think that is awesome. I'm very anti-nuclear power. I believe we should try to do as much as we can with solar and wind and other renewables, and even things like, you know, small scale stuff like methane production at home. People can compost stuff and like collect the methane that is developed. I've seen really awesome videos where people are doing this and using it for cooking their food in the home and heating their home and all this kind of stuff. It's like you can do things on a small scale that are a lot better, and you know, not have to rely on coal or nuclear, because there is such a danger, there is such a big problem, and I hope that other countries follow suit. And now they have actually said that they are going to close all 84 of its coal-fired plants and rely instead on renewable energy. And they are, you know, doing this at a, in my mind, pretty reasonable rate. I mean, it's going to be by 2038, so it's still a ways off. And some people are saying like it should be sooner and whatever. But like, think of how many other countries haven't done anything. And in fact, you know, you have like rhetoric from Trump where he wants to basically increase coal production and all this kind of stuff. It's like, this is awesome news. I just think this is great. They did say that their plan includes a bunch of money, so $45 billion worth to mitigate the pain in the coal region. So they're going to retrain people, get them other industries, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's great. Again, you can't just take away somebody's livelihood and expect them to be happy. But if you work, you know, to do a gradual shift and get them something else that they can do and be profitable, then they're gonna do that. So this is awesome. Definitely read through this article. Great news coming out of Germany. Okay, let's see what you guys said. Oh, a bunch of people joined. Hey, hey Peter, welcome. Going plastic free is the next step for me. That's awesome. That's a hard thing to do, and I think you've said this in comments too, that it's harder to go plastic free than it is to go vegan. I would agree with that. Veganize, Kirk. One person can make a world of difference. We are all connected. Absolutely. I mean, kudos to Greta. She's awesome. It is a time for protest, Nikki. I absolutely agree. The whales, TEPCO still dumping. The Fukushima syndrome, not the China syndrome. Whales in Japan commercially whaling again. Yeah, that's definitely not good. Nuclear is even more environmentally friendly than solar and wind, from what I know. Leon, I think the problem that I have with it is just, what do you do with all the nuclear waste, and also, you know, the success of the plants that are operating in the world has not been great. Like, if you look at the number of tragedies we've had from nuclear power plants, it's actually quite disheartening. If you look into it more, you'll see that it's not a good success rate. It's not at all like an airplane or something, where like they're incredibly safe and they're safer than cars or whatever. They have a terrible track record of being safe. So that's kind of my take on it. Maybe I'll do a video on it separately later. More good news coming out of Europe. The Finnish burger chain called Bun to Bun. They are ditching animal products and going fully exclusively vegan. And they're doing this in a bid for their part for the environment. So they're launching this week in Helsinki with 3 locations. Bun to Bun is now the nation's first ever vegan burger chain. The company has operated since spring, serving meat-based patties, but now they are going to switch to a fully vegan menu, and they explain the change. The chef and co-owner, Pertti Kalonheim, I don't know, I'm not going to pronounce it anyway. Why to change everything? Because I think as an entrepreneur, I need to do my part as well for the environment, he said. So this is awesome. Seems like they're more about the environment than the ethics, but I don't really care. As long as they're selling, you know, vegan products and people are buying it and it's tasty, kudos to them. And yeah, awesome stuff. So yeah, happy to see that. Nikki says, plus the UK are sending the waste to the US. Are you talking about the nuclear waste? Probably, yeah. Return to sender. Yeah, nobody wants it. It's the not in my backyard kind of problem. You know, nobody wants to be sitting on top of a bunch of radiation poisoned land and the water and everything. I mean, it's just crazy. There's not that much nuclear waste produced. The solution is easy though. Just dump it in an old mine. And then what about water pollution and, you know, seeping and all this kind of stuff? I mean, and look at like what happens with Fukushima. Look at what happens with an earthquake. Like, we have a nuclear power plant here in Hungary and they want to expand it. I'm not happy about that at all. Like, there's no guarantee that we won't face another you know, another disaster, and you're endangering so many people by doing it. Like, it's not just like one region of people that say, well, we've looked at the you know, risks and assessed it, and that's what we're going to do, and fine, like, we're willing to take the risk. Because what they're doing is they're endangering a whole huge area that's way beyond like their own borders, and that's the part that kind of bothers me. It's kind of like the argument against like meat eating as a personal choice. There's a victim on the other end, and with people here in Europe, they still very well remember like the Chernobyl tragedy. And I mean, I had a friend in high school when I was living in the U.S. Actually, he was a Polish kid, and he was born here and then moved to the U.S. As a young teenager or whatever. And he was close enough to Chernobyl that they had to take radiation sickness pills and all this kind of stuff, and he told me crazy stories about it. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, in my mind it's just unjustifiable. Let's see, still affecting us, veganize, yeah, absolutely. Hasn't every envisaged a bright white light? Not sure hasn't everyone envisaged a bright white light? Pink skies remind me of the Highlander. Okay, moving on. We're getting close to the end. Other good news. Netherlands Subway restaurants are giving up meat for an entire week. That sounds better than the actual reality. When you read the thing, they are trying to encourage their customers to order a meat-free sandwich, and they have some vegan options, but I don't think it's that they're not selling any meat. But anyway, it's a good step in the right direction, and they're basically highlighting on their website. So it says here, the organization advertises that every adult that ditches meat for a week will save 130 liters of water, 770 grams of animal meat, and the equivalent environmental impact of 76 kilometers of driving. So, kudos to them for making a step in the right direction. Hopefully they go farther, and hopefully, hopefully more people do that. You guys are talking about the Highlander. Yeah, there can only be one. Okay, the heated cat house. Okay. Okay, and Nikki's talking about the explosions. Yep. I wouldn't want to be near one, that's for sure. Okay, so this one is an interesting article. It's basically making the claim that 2-point-something million people, it's almost 3 million people, are saying that they're going to go and try to be vegan in 2019. So it says that it was a poll conducted by Voucher Codes. They asked Brits what their New Year's resolutions were, and the results included saving money, exercising more, and eating healthy, and a staggering number of people, 2,662,900, plan to go vegan this year. Brits are now almost as likely to go vegan as they are to give up alcohol for dry January. So I think this is awesome if it's true. I don't know, did they actually survey this many people? And somebody in comments on Twitter, because that's where I got this article, they pointed this out, very much an anti-vegan. They're like, yeah, I don't believe it that they talked to that many people. I don't know. I would be kind of curious. I haven't looked at the details yet, so take that with a grain of salt if it's not true. But I just think, it's great, and there's definitely more and more people signing up to Veganuary. There's, here it is. It's showing that 300,000 people signed up for Veganuary in 2019, triple the pledges from the previous year. So it's definitely on the rise. There's definitely more products, and it's just easier and easier for people to go vegan, and the more people that do it, the better. And they say veganism is dying off. Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy talk. I think people are going to, veganism in droves, and with good reason. So, yeah, screw all these I'm an ex-vegan carnivore people. I'm so tired of seeing this stuff. Anyway, vegan in Detroit. This was awesome. I just wanted to share this because back, for my viewers on the other side of the pond, bit of good news here. You wouldn't even think, maybe you would think of like LA or New York or places like that having like a great, vibrant vegan, scene and options. But this Metro Times, Detroit Metro Times article says that there are 70 places you can get good vegan food, and they list out their favorites and what kind of stuff you can get and all the different kind of options. And there's this place which is a fully vegan place, and then the other places just have lots of vegan options, and they tell you which ones they think are the best. But I mean, kudos to them, and yeah, it just goes to show you, you can find vegan options pretty much everywhere now, and it is spreading, and it's great news. So definitely, check that out. Yeah, Nikki, go vegan, exactly. We don't want veganism to fall into the New Year's resolution hole. Everyone said they were going to get down to their perfect weight last New Year's, and then they're mostly still fat. I absolutely agree with that, Race, but I still think, as long as it's something that people strive for, if they stayed vegan for half the year, that's already better than if they didn't at all. And, you know, maybe the next year, maybe they'll be 3/4 of the year. Maybe they'll be, you know, just an extra week. Like, who knows? Like, I just think any step in the right direction is better. The more it's normalized, the more it's like something to be sought and admired. Like if somebody says like, look, I'm going to quit smoking and I'm going to go vegan this year. Like that should be applauded, even if they can't succeed. Like the fact that they're trying, I think is just like, it's a really good thing. Veganize, closer to me, so it's good to know I'm in Michigan. Great. Yeah, go over to Detroit, man, and have some great vegan food. Are you planning to do a why I'm still vegan video? Yes, I probably will. I've been so busy and everyone's been sick here, and I've gotten sick now. I don't know if everybody can hear it on my voice, but I'm really feeling like really crap today. But I'll probably do one. I've been super busy, but I'll probably do one, and I definitely want to do one on the you know, censorship question and Vegan Gains channel. I will definitely do one of those. I think it's great to see those videos, by the way, Peter, so that's a good question. I think the more, you know, people go out and speak out against this kind of like, you know, oh, you can't be healthy on a vegan diet, you know, you're going to be nutrient deficient and you brain fog. I'm so tired of hearing brain fog. So yes, I think the more of us that put out a positive message and counter that message, the better. I think it's absolutely better. I think for a lot of them it's a matter of getting used to what's available. I think you're talking about the people like adopting the vegan diet, Leon, probably. But yeah, it's just if it's there, like, yeah, but like, why not, you know? There have been fat for 20 years New Year's resolutions, pal. Absolutely, Race. I'm not arguing with you, man. I remember when I was living in Boston, I would kind of hate the first couple weeks after the new year, because I would go to the gym regularly, and for that like 2-3 weeks, you know, in the beginning of January, like it was like you just couldn't get a spot in the gym. All the weights were taken, all the machines were taken, like everyone's in there, and then by like week 3 or 4 of January, everybody's like back to same old. In February it's like dead and nobody's going to the gym anymore. I know, I get it, but again, just the fact that I think it would change in somebody's mind to be something to aspire to, I think that's already a good thing. It will at least make them not come up to you and be like, oh, you're vegan, like, how do you get enough protein or whatever? Like, it's like, I still think it's a good thing, so, yeah. You won't go near Detroit. Well, anyway. Vegans don't get sick. Pal's a fake vegan. Yeah, I must be, right? Because otherwise I would be dead by now. I mean, I've been vegan for over 3 years now, so I must be lying. Anyway, all right. Next, crazy hunter stories. Man, this is just totally nuts. This guy and his son, they got sentenced because they went into a cave and shot dead a hibernating bear and her cubs. And this was in rural Alaska. And what they didn't realize, these couple of yahoos, is that there were hidden cameras in the cave, because the whatever the forestry or whatever, you know, group monitors the wildlife there, they had left those research cameras there. And so they were caught on film. This is his son, you know, killing these poor bears. And there's even like audio, I guess, of them. So here it's like, after the female bear was killed, the two men realized the sounds were coming from the cubs, not the dead mother, leading Andrew Renner to shoot them too. And he's heard saying, it doesn't matter, bear down. So they, you know, they basically, there's a quote from them. They say, they then dragged the bear's carcass into the snow outside the den, and in a second video clip, Owen says the collar was removed, adding, they'll never be able to link it to us. And you figure, for this gruesome attack and illegal activity, they pretty much got off very lightly, I would say, because where was the sentence here? Hold on. He was ordered to pay a $9,000 fine, forfeit his pickup truck, boat, trailer, weapons, skis, and cell phones, and had his hunting license revoked for 10 years. So it's like, in 10 years' time, he can just go and get his license back. It's like, yeah, he lost some money, but like, you know, he lost some possessions, but this is all just like money. Like, where's the jail time? Where's like some serious consequence to this action? The son had almost nothing. He said his son Owen had his hunting license suspended for 2 years and was ordered to take a hunter's safety course. It's like, are you kidding me? This is not even a slap on the wrist. this is like a gift, and it's just shocking. And if you again, not to be just like political, but like look at the Trump administration, they wanted to actually make it legal to go and bait, you know, the bears that are in hibernation and all this kind of stuff. And you know, so it's just shocking and sad. And you know, the consequence of this guy teaching his son to do this kind of stuff, it's just so sad. I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah. Anyway, next one up. This one is beyond crazy. This lady has gotten in trouble in Scotland already for posting inappropriate pictures and doing like some shady bad stuff on hunts. But this lady, I'm not going to scroll down to see more of the picture. It's pretty gross as it is. She posed for pictures that she shared on social media with a dead sheep that she shot and a blood-covered sex toy. I mean, it's just like, what is wrong with people? You know, this is the kind of people you want to be associated with if you're a hunter. I guess in the article they talk about a hunting party member from her group that basically like left the group, and you know, like, yeah, just ridiculous. Like even she said like this woman's out of her mind, and she's painting, you know, hunters in a bad light, and she's being disrespectful to the animal and blah 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 and whatever. But again, you know, this is kind of like what I see, like hunters. There is no this like nice sacred, like I respect the animals. Like everyone wants to point to like native peoples and how they like, you know, said a prayer over the animal after they killed him, whatever. Like this lady's like posing with a sex toy covered in blood with the animal. Like, you know, good luck. Like, I don't know. And she's making money because she has t-shirts that she sells and stuff. It's absolutely disgusting. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to reply to the jokes. Anyway, so next, this was a bit of good news coming out of the UK. We've talked so much about hunting before. I did the live stream with Ellie, and basically this feast day that is held in Cornwall. It's apparently a tradition that's been going on for like whatever, hundreds of years. Like I don't know how old this town is, but yeah, it says here, members of the hunt, the most westerly in the British Isles with a history dating back to 1820s, has met at the square, and they enjoyed a drink and blah blah blah, and then they would go off on the little parade through town, and they have now been told that they're not welcome. And the committee here said that the character of the parish had changed from one dominated by a rural economy to one where most people no longer wish to have the hunt in the town. So it's great. They had a signature signing thing, and this goes back to kind of what I said about these petitions. Like, they actually affected a little bit of a positive change, because what they did was they got people to sign a petition, they brought it to the town council, and they got the council to vote in favor of ending the tradition of inviting them. So it's great. Like this is awesome. They're no longer invited to this thing, and they said it's until otherwise, so they're not going to get invited next year either. So great. This feast day is not going to have the hunt. Good for them. This one, a little bit of the health topic. Eating fried chicken weekly could lead to early death, study finds. This was on USA Today. They're basically saying, yeah, how would you like your death, regular or extra early? So they talk about a study that shows that eating regular consumption of fried chicken, one serving a week or more, is as much as 13% increased risk of premature death, at least among older women. So, you know, again, no good reason to eat animals, and lots of good reasons to not eat animals. So yeah, and you know, I mean, we all know like deep frying stuff is not healthy anyway. So like, I'm sure, you know, you deep fried like vegetables, that's not good for you either. Plus, you're using like egg in the batter and all this kind of stuff, and you know, there's like burning and whatever. But the whole point is like people are getting hip and realizing that they shouldn't be eating fried chicken. This is a awesome article that I found by a lady called Brooke Goldner. She's written a book called Goodbye Lupus. This is kind of a article that just talks about her own experiences, about how she had lupus. It was destroying her life. She had to go through chemo for treatment. People had no idea how to treat her disease. She was basically like completely, you know, debilitated by her illness. and she managed through the support and love of her husband, who was a vegan, to go fully plant-based and adopt a really healthy diet, and she was able to cure her symptoms completely, and she's been able to have children, which they said she would never be able to do, and she is incredibly fit and all this kind of stuff, and she's written this book to help other people by sharing her experience. It's a really, really great kind of like article and just talking about her experience and the book. This is her family. So, kudos to them. Check it out. If anybody is suffering with lupus or, similar kind of, irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease or other kinds of things like that, many of these diseases are inflammatory diseases brought on by the consumption of animal products, and the adoption of a whole food plant-based diet can go a long way to potentially even reversing and minimizing the symptoms experienced. So check that out. I just think this is a great little article. Veganize just one serving, that's a small portion. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, like you don't need much to harm yourself. And we come to the end here. I just wanted to share this basically blog site. A friend of mine here in Hungary recommended it to me. They're friends with the person who writes these articles, and this is a article that she wrote for a zero waste trip vegan holiday to Budapest. So as most people probably know, I live near Budapest here in Hungary, and I definitely recommend people come. It's a great place to live. There's really great vegan options popping up. It seems like every week there's like a new vegan place to go to, and lots of places that aren't vegan are getting more vegan friendly. So I just think it's awesome. And she is called Annie, and Annie writes about like zero waste kind of topics and travel topics, and she does kind of like travel blog stuff. So check out her site. And yeah, I think maybe if anybody is interested in Budapest, she covers a lot of stuff that you can do here, has some good pictures and recommendations of places to go check out. I've done some videos about places that I like going to, and she even talks about taking it to the next step, which is like Peter was talking about, like zero waste, reducing the plastic, and where you can buy whole, what do they call this, like just in a paper bag or whatever, like whole, oh shoot, what's the, anyway, I can't think of the word right now. I'm getting too tired. But anyway, check it out. I'll have the link for this as well, and then I will also add the link from Kirk about the dogs and bringing the pets inside. So that's all I got for today. Let me jump back here to the other view with just the camera. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had fun, and I think if anybody, don't take Race Lever too serious. I don't know, I think the jokes kind of got maybe out of hand. I didn't even actually read all of them, but hard to keep up with everything. But yeah, just hope everybody had fun, and definitely share the stories if you can with other people. Really appreciate everybody's support, and I've got a bunch of new subscribers, so really happy to see everybody here and engage with you guys. And yeah, I'm glad you guys like it. Thanks so much for being on. So I'll put all the links at the end in the comments, and yeah, thanks everybody. So see you guys in the next one. Bye.